Hey, Futurecast. I think this is my first time on the Futurecast.
Definitely. You've never been invited on. So this is the debut
No.
at the 2023 Senior Bowl.
We're here. Cody Carpentier, Alex Dunlap from RosterWatch is here. The Senior Bowl. Spoiler alert, it wasn't great. It wasn't 2020 by any means. Just to put it in context, okay? The quarterbacks in 2020 included Jordan Love, fine, right? Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts. Do you remember that class? The 2020 quarterback class. Do you remember that 2020 quarterback class?
This isn't it. This isn't it this week. We'll get to it, man.
No.
There's some good things to get to, but
there's good things. There's some good things. There's some good players. But I want to lead with the biggest takeaway, which is this isn't 2021. It's not 2022. It certainly isn't 2020. This is its own class.
Yep.
It's going to play out how it plays out. And there's some structural issues with the way the talent pools are affecting other talent pools. Like we'll talk about the cornerbacks and how they're affecting the wide receivers. We'll talk about particular wide receivers that underwhelm. Some wide receivers I thought actually impressed. So there were some impressive performances.
I think the biggest one, like you mentioned, I don't want you to get off of that, is the quarterbacks being underwhelming. And the cornerbacks, so the quarterbacks underwhelming, the cornerbacks overpowering. Yeah. As far as, they're very, very handsy this week.
I was going to get to that later. I had that take save. That was going to be my
But that
big
was like
take.
That's like you said, number one. That's the big takeaway. Is the quarterbacks are so bad, and the cornerbacks coupled with it have just made that process of evaluation a little tougher. And
I think what I said to Ray Garvin was the quarterbacks are bad and the cornerbacks are too good.
Yeah.
So it's a real issue. It was actually more of an issue with the second practice with the American side. The national side, the quarterbacks were better and the cornerbacks were worse. So we actually had some contested catches that wide receivers could actually complete.
It's not the worst quarterback class that we've seen in the last decade.
It's not?
No, it's not the worst, but it's been tough. And one of the tough things is not so much us coming here to evaluate these quarterbacks and figure out for dynasty or fantasy, super flex.
You would draft one of these quarterbacks?
No, well, I'm here to see him the rest of the week, right? I mean, who knows? But it was disappointing today with all the dump offs to the running backs, all the dump offs to the tight ends. None of these guys were willing to uncork and just let the ball loose. Let us see what these guys are like in action when they can't. Some of these dudes were getting separation downfield and they just weren't ever seeing the football. So there's a little bit of an evaluation problem there. But no, this is not Logan Thomas and Stephen Morris and like it was in like 2014.
That was the worst.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, you couldn't evaluate anything that year, so it's not quite like that. I mean, Max Duggan's a good player. I thought Haener in the first.
Thank God for Duggan. Thank God.
But even Duggan, it was brutal because he wouldn't nobody would let it rip. I want to see Clayton Tune had this big arm coming in from Houston and he didn't do anything. He would wait back there and wait for something to open up. And like we talked about, these cornerbacks and these linebackers were pretty much mugging everybody. And there was PI called on a bunch of plays and stuff like this in this walkthrough practice type thing. But it was like consistently tight end, 4 yards under running back. And it's like, there's receivers running full routes downfield and they're just not throwing the ball to him. And like Duggan was fine, right? Duggan was good, but Tune couldn't get the ball, wouldn't push the ball downfield. Bagent missed consistently. First practice isn't even. Bagent, we come in, we knew he was going to be a project. He's going to be a project. He's not going to be the guy he's not going to be the first quarterback taken on day 2, or I should say day 3. But definitely not day 2. But
last year we had Pickett.
The project was day
Ritter,
3, yeah. But
Willis, there was a bunch of pro-ready quarterbacks. Well, Willis not pro-ready.
You had guys that started like Zappy. Like Zappy was the sort of the equivalent this year for the Shepherd kid, right? I'm not. To be honest, I was probably about as unimpressed with Zappy to start last year as I was with that kid today. So who knows, man? We got the rest of the week. I'll keep my fingers crossed. It'll be fine. They're going to need them to push. Here's the thing: these scouts and these coaches and stuff, like they're here to get these same evals that we're trying to get on these players, and they're going to say, look, you can't It's like Cody was saying all practice, man. Some of these guys need to understand, like, this isn't all about you as the quarterback here. Like, some of these times, like, we're gonna want to see what these receivers can do when they're separating downfield. If you give them the ball, you give them a chance to win. Can they win? We just didn't see as much of that today. We saw some of it, and the good news is we saw it for some important wide receivers that we were actually looking for some of that contested catch stuff with. Some of the wide receivers that we were looking for the man coverage stuff with. We did get to see it in glimpses. We just didn't get a big sample the way that I'm hoping that we will over the course of the next 2.
I was most excited by the running backs, which is why we're going to keep the running back position to the end. So I want to talk about wide receivers first, in the context that they were facing off against several first, second, and third round cornerbacks that were basically running routes for them in many cases, getting incredible jumps on the balls. I mean, we are a fantasy football show, the Future Cast, helping to project the players that you're going to eventually draft in Dynasty, but we can't talk about the wide receivers without talking about how awesome this cornerback group is.
Yeah, I mean, the big one was, we got to go on the field afterwards and kind of talk to some of these receivers: Dontavian Wicks, Jonathan Mingo, Xavier Hutchinson, Jalen Wayne. Asked them all, what's your biggest matchup? Who you want to play against tomorrow? So today you had a good practice, but these cornerbacks are overpowering. Who's the guy? Julius Brents out of Kansas State, 6'3", 202. Like, we talked about Tariq Woolen last year, 6'4", 200 pounds, and he ran that 4.2. He's not this. Julius Brents isn't going to run a 4.2, but Julius Brents was locked down today. He was great. Tariq Stevenson from Miami, strong. Julia was Darius Rush.
Who is number 3, number 2, number 28, number 23 the national team?
Darius Rush was the one from South Carolina that you mentioned there, 28.
Right. All right. So what about number? Is there a number? What about? So from the American team, 2, 28, 23. I guess 2 was a safety.
2 was the safety from Alabama, DeMarco Helms.
What about who's 28?
That was Darius Rush from South Carolina. He was the one that was called out at the end to line up on
Rashee Rice.
Can
we start with him?
Yeah. I think that the theme is
that was the big one.
More wide receivers disappointed than exceeded expectations, and it starts with Rashee Rice.
Yep. Rashee Rice came in here. I had talked about a guy that I thought was a very, very dynamic, polished player. He reminded me a ton of Rashad Bateman. What he was able to do and what he was able to do at SMU, breaking the single season yardage record, after guys who had been there that were good, good prospects, regardless of what you say about what's happened with, James Prochet at the NFL level. Or
did he beat James Prochet's? Was it James Prochet's record?
No, it was Emmanuel Sanders' record. Emmanuel Sanders was there. Aldrick Robinson, Prochet, Cortland Sutton.
Aldrick Robinson.
Trey
what a
Quinn
name.
Was good. They've had good players. Rashee Rice comes in and he great route runner, great body control, all this stuff. But there were sources at SMU that had told me that, he might get into the 4.5s as far as his 40. And I was like, oh, shit. Like, we're talking a guy that might get into the 4.5s. Like, I'm hoping this dude's a 4.4 guy, dynamic, awesome player here. We saw today there's not many ways that Rashee Rice wins. It's the first day of practice, but he has trouble separating. He has trouble. He's a little bit lumbering getting out of his getting into his routes, sinking his hips and getting out of them. He has these guys jump his routes. He has a hard time getting by guys. When he does get by guys, he seems to get overwhelmed with their length. There was some big long corners on that. I guess that's the American roster, and it was just he would get swallowed up. And coming in, I had him rated as the guy that on film I liked him best of all the Senior Bowl wide receivers. Now, I'm going to go back and redo this, and I don't think that was that far off of consensus. Well, Cody, was it? I don't look.
No, I've heard he's better than Quentin Johnson. I heard a lot of hype on this guy.
Yeah,
I was excited to see him.
So Rashee Rice, I'm hoping for the rest of the week maybe he'll turn it on. We've seen these guys get off to slow starts and really come on through the course of the week. Man, he either had a slow day or he was feeling sick or like something. There was something going on with Rashee Rice to where there really wasn't. I'm looking at my notes and I wrote down. I'm like, well, what is special about what he does?
Listen, tomorrow's a big day for Rice. And the reason why this is important, this is practice. I know that some people might be listening to the show and like, why are they breaking down an all-star game practice? This is silly. This whole exercise is silly. No, this is not a normal practice. This is a showcase. So there are an incredible number of one-on-one drills, 7-on-7, and full team drills, much more than you would get in a typical practice.
Yeah.
And it's set up as a showcase to show players skills in situations where they're matched up with, equivalent or superior talent across from them. So this is a unique experience to see these players in a vacuum time and time again. We come to the Senior Bowl and identify a singular wide receiver, usually. A wide receiver, there's typically one wide receiver that stands out, head and shoulders above. You can go back to Cooper Kupp. You can go back to Deebo Samuel. You can go back to, there was that 1 year with Denzel Mims. But then last year, Christian Watson, right? So
there have been other years too. I mean, there've been like the Marvin Jones Jr. year. You might think of him as a dusty old wide receiver now, but like he came out and like at that Senior Bowl, he showed like he's gonna be a hell of a prospect. He's in the NFL 12 years later. So.
Yeah. No, the Senior Bowl is a great venue to evaluate players in a way that you can't just watching them in college. It's not a typical practice. So it's a unique event in and of itself. It's very useful. That's why we're here. We wouldn't be here as an analytics shop if it weren't super useful. So let's talk about other wide receivers that you had high hopes for and didn't deliver.
Trey Palmer. I came in, you talk about Rashee Rice. The top of the list for me, it was one tier. As far as pre-grading goes, these four guys were all in the same tier. It was Rashee Rice, Xavier Hutchinson, Trey Palmer, and Jaden Reed. And Rashee Rice, we talked about, he came in 10 pounds heavier. That kind of is a question for me. Did the 10 pounds, he put 10 pounds on over the last 10, 15 pounds over the last couple of weeks, and then he comes in and he's sluggish.
Like 200 pounds or whatever
and he's sluggish.
Was he 200?
He was 200 on the nuts.
Yeah,
and he
like, oh, wheels up.
Yeah, I saw that when I saw the measurables on Trey Palmer. I was like, okay.
Yeah. And so Rashee Rice was 200 pounds, and then Trey Palmer comes in, and Trey Palmer looks good when he's walking on the field. And I was expecting, his build being closer to an Odell Beckham, having some more athleticism because he's a fast guy, he's a 4.3 guy, and this isn't a knock on Josh Palmer, but he looked blocky and stiff in the upper body. He couldn't get out of breaks as strong as I thought he could on tape a little bit. And I just really wasn't as impressed with Trey Palmer. Interviewed him after the practice. Dog, but he just, as far as on the field, it wasn't that level. I think your comp a lot closer to the Will Fuller conversation. I think that's more so where he belongs. So he's going to come down for me naturally. But that was the other one that disappointed me out of the four.
And the thing about his hands, the worry about the hands. What was it? 11 drops last year. You just see he lets the ball into. If he has free space, he's not gonna catch the ball with his hands. He lets it into his body. We saw it. If it's a spot where he's got to go up and get it, or he's capable of making hands catches, but it doesn't feel like his natural way of doing business. And we saw it today, man. Like a lot of body catches out of him. And also, here's the thing, dude. I have it written down. I'm like, where's this?
You have it written down on a notepad.
Record breaking.
That means it's important.
Where's this record breaking Louisiana State high school record 200 meter dash speed? Where is the guy that won the state championship at the 100 meter and the 200 meter for 4 years in a row as a high school? Like, where's that speed? Like when Philip Dorsett was here, you can look at it. When Marquise Goodwin was here, you can look at it. You can say, well, holy shit, look how much faster he is than all the rest.
I've just had a flashback. You know what player I just had a flashback to? We had this exact same discussion with me about Devin Duvernay. Yeah. Devin Duvernay came here, and you were asking, where's the speed?
Just where does it show up functionally?
Yeah.
So, but blame the quarterbacks too. We never saw him push anything.
blame the quarterbacks to some degree, because there could have been reps where I was watching another player besides Palmer where he could have been blazing wide ass open on one of these 9 rounds.
The national team,
But-
he's on the national team. The national team actually had better quarterback play and lesser cornerback play. So the national team,
I don't think the
wide
national-
receivers,
No.
They
I think
had-
them mixed up because the national team at least had Max or the American team at least had Max. Duggan.
Listen. Okay. The national team did not have the number of corners suffocating them like the American
The
team.
American team corners, and I'm always wrong about how to bet this game because it's always weird how to bet it. But this is a thing where it's like if I was having to choose how to bet this game and it's some kind of pick 'em, I look at the DBs for the American team and versus those quarterbacks, and I just think if there's some kind of line where it's like a pick 'em, I would say maybe the American team based on just the first day of practices might be who you want to go with.
This American team's gonna. I mean, they're gonna suffocate the national team as far as the corners go and the quarterback play.
And there was some holding.
Slightly.
Some holding by the cornerbacks as
Slightly.
well. I mean, it's like one of those things. It's like, yeah, they were holding, but he also exploded out of his crouch and deflected the ball away in a way that very few people could. So it's like, hey, these guys are just super physical. So let's talk about a few more wide receivers.
Some that are better, maybe.
No, like there's plenty. Like Ronnie Bell was as bad as advertised, right? Did you anyone
Was he advertised as being real bad coming in?
did anyone get anything out of Ronnie Bell?
Well, he did on the zebra tracking. He did run the farthest of anybody else on the field.
Wow,
5,219 yards.
So
Congrats.
He definitely got a lot done as far as Ronnie Bell got a big workout in today.
He did.
He's
Yeah,
gonna be tired, but he's not gonna have a lot of
Puka Nacua looked good.
Yeah,
Right. So there were some good performances.
Dude, Puka Nacua, they had him lined up exclusively over at the Z. They had him in the sets with who was number 8 for the who was 8 on the. I'm getting them mixed up now. 8 on the national team. Let's see.
You mean in terms of the wide receiver, that was Ronnie Bell.
So they had Ronnie Bell on one side. They had Puka Nacua on that other side with him.
Team, right?
Yeah, and they kind of had him running with the second team. But on my flight in, Hainer and Nacua were working together as far as kind of going through plays and quizzing each other and stuff like that, just in the seats right in front of me. And then the quarterback, Jaron Hall,
Horrible.
right, but God, he was bad. But he had the built-in stuff with Nacua too, so it felt like he was always in a good spot to be making plays. He looked dependable. He looked good. As I go back and re-rank these guys, I'm thinking Nacua is probably going to, out of 16, he probably is going to be in the top half of
He
those.
was one of maybe 3 wide receivers that I think helped themselves today.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's kind of good. We'll see, but like we said, he did work hard to kind of have some built-in camaraderie with one of his quarterbacks, and then he had the built-in camaraderie with. I'm not sure we even need to talk really about the quarterbacks, but the stuff with Hall was really, really disappointing. With just
talk about that one ball. The one ball says that his whole day was defined by that one, the drop back, and again, I'll allude to this again where these quarterbacks just held the ball, and in these practice settings, when there's no D-line rushing you, and even if there is, they're not going to touch you. It's about getting your drop back and getting the ball out, and they're just like holding, and it's like, and then a dump off, and it's like 4 seconds, and it's like none of that's realistic. And what Jaron Hall did is he kept doing it, and then there was a play where it was like throw the damn ball 4 seconds, and then he finally pumps. And he thought twice, and the ball went backwards out of his hand.
I'd never seen that. I was an equipment manager at Northwestern, and we didn't have the best quarterbacks, but I never saw that. I never saw that in practice.
But that just kind of defined the day at quarterback, especially for him. It was just like these guys. I think they all were. They're all at that. They're all in the middle to lower tier at the quarterback position in the class overall. And I think they're all just really. To be quite frankly, I think they're all scared to push the ball and to take that next step to make the mistake, and that's going to naturally come with the group of quarterbacks if you're not in that upper level of talent or the mentality to be a leader and all that stuff that goes into it. But
would you rather have Puka or would you rather have Andre Iasovis?
How is that? What's his name again? Yisovic.
Is it Yusovish?
Yusovish.
Okay,
Yosevash.
Andre
Yosevash.
Yosevash. Dude, I'm getting to know these guys.
I don't know. Man.
Yusovish, great.
It's
So
spelled, it's spelled nothing like that.
So Puka Nacua or Nasovish?
Puka
Nacua.
Right.
No question.
Yeah. Do you think? I don't think Nasovish helped himself.
Yosevash was
Yosevish.
as advertised, as somebody on Twitter would say. He's advertised. Not Christian Watson though. That's one thing. People were like, "This is going to be Christian Watson because he's from Princeton and he's not a big school name and he's coming over here."
Number 9.
And he's wearing.
Yeah, and
They
he's
put him in
6'3".
They put him in the Watson jersey, number 9 that Watson wore last
I
year.
was excited for this guy. I was.
Not.
I think we should give him one more day.
He's not. But
He's one of these wide receivers. I think we give him one more day. He's coming from Princeton. Let's give him another day.
All these guys, we're gonna give them 2 more days, all of them. But for our reactions to day 1, he didn't show much. And also, I personally saw one horrible drop out of him. Yeah. So it's like we'll see, but there wasn't anything athletically that popped out. The good news is we're kind of getting through some of the guys that maybe didn't show as much. There were some guys today that did show a lot of things athletically.
Jonathan Mingo started slow, but he came on at the end.
Yeah, well, Trash Man will be here any minute, and Trash Man can come in and do a little Jonathan Mingo victory lap.
A victory lap
that he can. Well, he
was pretty good.
He can maybe what I'm saying, like a little mini victory lap.
Mini
sort of
victory
runs
lap.
around this sectional.
Again,
people can see it.
He was on the American side, and so I felt bad for him because he was often lined up at X, had to go against a true lockdown, top 40 corner. Yeah. And so he had a really challenging time. I'm excited to see him tomorrow too. Mm-hmm. He's one of those guys that I'm not, I heard you comparing him to Dontario Drummond, which I think was insulting.
It's fair enough.
I think it was a snap judgment.
He's closer to Drummond than he is to AJ Brown. And
these
guys are the same size.
Really?
Yeah.
AJ Brown, you're gonna go straight to AJ Brown?
Well, they're all 3 Ole Miss guys that are like sick. Like,
can he be Is he allowed to be DeMarcus Lodge? How about DeMarcus Lodge? How about a better DeMarcus Lodge?
That are barely over 6 foot, 225 pounds.
Okay.
Huge BMI guys. That
right.
It's like,
I just think it's rude.
Okay.
I think it was. I think you were
of all fucking people that talk about being rude on the internet with your podcast.
10 minutes into practice.
Jesus Christ.
Well, did I talk to
fucking rude? Jesus Christ.
Did I talk to Jonathan Mingo after practice? Yes. Was he nice to me? Yes. Is it affecting what I'm saying? Yes. I was like, why are we talking shit about you? You're a nice guy.
I'm sure he's great.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I know, great.
I want to talk about this. So Matty Kiwum, our boy, just put it in the chat. He said, "How'd Tank Dell do today?"
No. We can't talk about Tank Dell.
I want to talk about somebody positive.
I know. Well, no. One more guy. Xavier Hutchinson. You talked to Xavier Hutchinson after practice. Let's get into Xavier Hutchinson. My worry is this is a Big 12 wide receiver. I'm nervous about Xavier Hutchinson. I was doubtful. I didn't see anything special from him, but then you talked to him after practice. What do you have to say?
I mean, all these guys kind of had the same same thought process. Having to go against Julius Branson, Tyreek Stevenson today was tough for all of them. And he basically just said that was his biggest competition was Julius Branson, who playing at Iowa State, he played against Kansas State and already did that. But kind of what Alex brought up last Saturday when we were on the Futurecast talking about the preview was Xavier Hutchinson, 67%. Is that the number was 67% against zone?
Yeah, it was like a 66% target rate versus zone coverage and just under 20% versus man coverage. And you start thinking to yourself, why is that? What's going on with it? And I heard you talked to him after practice, but I heard him being interviewed by some of the national media asking, what do the scouts say that they want to see from you? Sure enough, I mean, this is one of the easiest ones, Cody, to figure out. Yep. Well, the first thing he said, they want to see me versus man. And how I react versus man. And when he's out there versus man, no shit, he struggles a little bit to get open. They go to team they go to team drills whenever they go to the simple the simple 2-high zone, and when they do this, he finds a little pocket and they can get him the football. And it's just it leads you to believe that if you watched him in college, you would think like, the way he take over football games, only one game in 2022 where he had less than 8 receptions. He was just, every game you look at it, it's not really a highlight reel because his longest catch, I think, was 38 yards on the year. But the volume, right? The volume.
Right.
He was a big part of every game offensively, especially in the post Brees Hall year.
He's fine.
He's fine.
He's fine.
But he's not.
Okay, good question. Would you rather?
And he's just. I'll just say this. I always pictured Xavier Hutchinson as somebody that's going to come in here, be like 6'3". He's going to go up and get has to catch balls. He's going to play outside. He's not. He's just over 6 feet tall. And he feels like a possession wide receiver that's really good and really nifty at finding soft spots in the zone.
Would you rather have Xavier Hutchinson or Michael Wilson? Because these are both solid players, possession receivers, but don't have the wow factor.
I mean, based on my limited exposure to Michael Wilson, I've not done my formal evaluation on him. I've only seen him here. But I will say this. I think I'd take Xavier Hutchinson.
Xavier Hutchinson.
Really?
Xavier Hutchinson, because one, for fantasy, 160 targets from Xavier Hutchinson last year by itself is more than Michael Wilson's had since he was junior year of high school through his entire career at Stanford.
Oh.
He had, that's point blank by itself.
Oh.
Wilson by himself is severely underrated from the national media. Nobody's talking about Michael Wilson.
I'm only saying that because he actually looked really cool and fun, and he had great moves.
Go gadget hips.
He had smooth hips, quick feet. Like the guy, he was fun to watch in drills.
Wilson's a dude.
He's fun to watch. So this is why we, yes, seeing these players in these drills is important, but if a guy's going to have 160 targets and he's going to blot out the sun with college production, that's what's going to win the day with our evaluation. And you can see I'm outvoted already. So there it is.
But the thing is, like, if I was running an NFL team, I'd probably wait and be able to get Michael Wilson 5th, 6th round. That's an entirely different conversation. But as far as, like, I think our conversation, Hutchinson, I think, is pretty easily, I would say, ahead of Michael Wilson.
Okay. Dontavian Wicks impressed me. He sprained an ankle, and then he played through it. You could see he was stretching it out, and he was still getting after it. He's an interesting player.
Massive hands. Talked to him after practice as well. And the big question that me and Alex had, especially coming in, we talked about this last weekend, was 2022. What happened? Because 2021, he had over 1,000 yards. He looked fantastic, Michael Gallup-esque. And 2022, he only had 400 or 500 yards, didn't do much. What was the problem? And he basically said, I asked him, because he alluded to it before I even brought it up. And he goes, 2022, I just, it's in the past. It was in the process. And I said, what about it? What's your growth factor from 2021
nice guy, by
through
the way.
2022, through this draft process?
Hell of a guy.
From 2022. And he's like, I just looked at it as a growing experience. And obviously Virginia had tragedy in their program this year. And he just looked at the entire process of 2022 as a growing experience, having injury, the team, everything that went on. So you can't really exit out the year that he had. But like you alluded to, 2021 looked entirely different. And
3.25 yards per route run in 2021 versus 1.26 in 2022. Yeah. It's just a different year. And you can say different coaching staff. Tragedy in the program. I mean, tragedy in the program didn't happen until the middle of November.
It was already bad before.
Something was up. We haven't got those answers exactly, but I will say that within his team, he's one of the better looking receivers. On that squad.
I think he looked good. Yeah. And there's a reason why the Breakout Finder app looks at a player's best college season. That is a data point for the Breakout Finder because we found that there are some seasons where a player is just not himself. And the guy you're drafting is not the guy that played in 2022, and that often happens. So let's talk about the best receivers. I'm going to throw one of my favorite players out there, Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed was great, but also I think it's Jaden Reed and Nathaniel Dell, also known as Tank Dell. Those, to me, were the two most impressive receivers. Do you agree? This is a question for both of you. Do you agree with that? And if you do, who would you prefer?
Okay, oh gosh. I mean, Jaden Reed's the best receiver here, and he was a guy who I hadn't done my formal evaluation on, but he's the best receiver here. He is not only fast, but he's just so twitched up. He is so
I like
what's the?
I liked your comp better than mine.
I'm trying to think of the word, like the way that he gets in and out of his breaks. It's not one of these things where he's like super explosive. The way, like, I just want to say artistic, but I just want to say he's like kind of very.
His lower body dexterity is pretty.
He's just very he finds these ways to get open in these one-on-one drills that are just. You look at him, you're like, whoa, that was an impressive thing what he did. That was a little bit unusual and unique what he just did, but it looks clean, it looks polished, it looks like he's worked on it. He's a great kick returner. He's fast. He has very consistent hands. I guarantee you that he's going to test explosively. And to me, I look at him and I see Antonio Brown. It's a big compliment to say that, but it's the first comp that came to my head. I'm like, this guy's coming into practice and he's looking like the kind of dominant player that you see every single time. Man, you come to these Senior Bowls every single time. Something that feels like you just look, you say, holy shit, look at this guy. It's like, wow.
Denzel Mims, remember that?
Mims, right. Do you remember Cooper Kupp or Debo?
I know. This is what, sadly, because he's 5'10", what is going to matter is the combine. The combine is gonna have all the information now because we know he's good, and if he runs a 4.35, it's gonna be wheels completely up. If he's not, if he's like a 4.5 guy, it's gonna be challenging. It's gonna be difficult.
Well, it looks like there's a comment in the chat saying that he trained with AB,
and that's from a guy that played point guard in high school.
So that's,
there you go.
Maybe he learned some of those moves.
Antonio Brown didn't run a sub 4.4. These outliers exist, but I'm saying you're in outlier world. If he's not going to run fast, then he's an outlier.
I don't think he's going to. I don't think he's going to blaze sub 4.4.
He's almost 5'11" and 191. I don't think he has to run under 4.54 to be like 4.51. At the outer bounds, that would be like my limit of
right. I think 4.4s would be good for him, but man, for me, there's no question. Jaden Reed's the best receiver here.
Yep.
I think they'll bump it because he's 190, and they'll probably bump him up to 5'11" at the combine. Is my guess.
His age will send to one of those masseuses.
Yeah,
stretch him out.
Then I think at that point. You could still have a Calvin Ridley athletic profile,
right,
and be great. I mean, he's an interesting player, man.
Yeah, and then I'll let Cody talk about Tank Dell. I mean, my just thoughts on Tank Dell, and kind of we talked to Ray G, man, our guy, after practice, and Ray G's like, shit, man, how many times are we gonna do this with these 160-pound dudes? How many times are we gonna do it? And it's like it's kind of true.
I remember the Senior Bowl in 2020 with Chase Claypool and Michael Pittman, and guess who was making the most plays, catching the most passes? People were talking about
the kid that went to Ohio State.
No, James Prochet.
Oh, Prochet. No, there's also the Ohio State.
You always have to remember that in 7-on-7s and 1-on-1s, that there is some priority given to slot receivers that can just get open. These quarterbacks, yes, they want to help to help the coaches evaluate and the scouts evaluate the wide receivers. They're there to serve that function, but they also want to complete passes.
Yep. Yeah, and it's easier especially for these slot guys that are super fast and they're just doing the drag routes over the middle. Like there's these linebackers or safeties just like, oh shit! Like
it didn't surprise me that he looked good, but he did look very good. He looked very, very quick, and he
always
catching everything.
Yep.
So it's interesting. He's interesting. A Wan'Dale Robinson type is absolutely in his range of outcomes, but he wasn't as prolific in his final season as Wan'Dale Robinson.
Well, he's been pretty prolific for Houston. Tank Dell. With that being said,
Houston is it's an
air raid offense.
I mean, so his dominator rating is not going to be what Wan'Dale Robinson's was at Kentucky, but yes, he was prolific at Houston. One of these air raid offenses. It's just I want to see players like that in the NFL. When you see them here, you close your eyes like what would a successful year for this guy look like?
Well, then you
And
close
then
your eyes and you think
there's
about it.
too many Isaiah McKenzie's. What Ray Garvin was trying to explain is, guys,
Right.
most of these guys are going to be Isaiah McKenzie.
They're not going to be Marquise Brown. They're not going to be Deshaun Jackson. Like, I get that. That's the thing. It's like, is this guy Deshaun Jackson? I'm not sure. Is he Marquise Brown? I don't think so. So that's sort of where we are. But
Marquise Brown's like the only 160-pound wide receiver that's had a relevant fantasy season in memory. Like,
So
Tutu Atwell had a couple weeks, but not a full season.
I will say the Tank Dell, man, like that guy, whenever Cody does his dog ratings and stuff, I'm going to bet he's high because that's a 163-pound dude that gets after it in the run blocking game and all kinds of shit.
He's fun,
yeah.
man.
So, but I totally agree, man. It's a flyer, and it's a flyer in Dynasty. It's one of these 4th, 5th round rookie draft picks. I would think that you can make and just hope something goes big in the same way you were maybe targeting our comp for him coming in, which was Calvin Austin Jr. from last season.
The thing with Calvin Austin, and I remember specifically a year ago watching Calvin Austin and enjoying Calvin Austin and his size. He was in that same way, but he was also very soft-spoken. And if you have to compare it, when I came in here, I was looking at Trey Tucker, I was looking at Nathaniel Dell, and Darius Davis. And
you're talking about looking at your dog rating.
No, I'm talking about these 3 guys that are 5'8", 5'7", 168, 165, 163.
Yes.
Which one of these 3 guys is going to elevate themselves? Because that was a big question. They're all 3 the same freaking size. They're all 3 fast. Trey Tucker was a guy that was consistently fine today. Darius Davis was the one where I was like, I think Darius Davis might be the guy that's best out of these 3 coming in. Darius Davis was the Calvin Austin where, yeah, he has the speed. Yeah, he's got the agility, but he's just not that dude. Nathaniel Dell had a different gear, a different level of speed, a different level of smoothness in and out of routes. A stride
that finds the way to get involved.
Stride. He was constantly. I know you talk about 7-on-7, but constantly, I don't even know what the word is. Like, his ability to get in and out of breaks so quickly. Just put him there, and those cornerbacks were 5. Boom, the corner would slide 5 yards past him, and bang, Tank makes the catch, and Tank goes down the field, and he strides out everything. And his strides just remind you of like a player with that speed. That's not a joke. Like, it's not Calvin Austin's trying full tilt 110% every time he makes a play or he's running. Darius Davis 100%, 110%. Tank Dell doesn't have to try 110%. He's 80% striding, and he's faster than all these guys, like a freaking 2-year-old doe. And
Rondale Moore.
Rondell was thicker throughout the ball. But even this, like we talked about, I asked you this question. Darius and Tank were standing next to each other. I said, which one looks bigger? Darius looks smaller, but Darius weighs like 6 pounds heavier. And it's like, and Tank is just built better for being a smaller guy.
His nickname is Tank.
His nickname is Tank for a reason. Like he hates, you said he hates the word Nathaniel, and he wants to be called Tank. So I'm gonna call him Tank. But
I like Nathaniel.
It's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough coming out of here in a couple days to have him be. He's probably post day one. Post day one, I say projecting he's probably gonna be, in the conversation, definitely in the conversation for the all Senior Bowl team. But having him be your top receiver coming out of here from this group is going to be very tough because of being 163 pounds. When you talk about a guy like Jaden Reed, who we just talked about, Jaden Reed, man, top to bottom, I had him
Jaden
6th
Reed,
overall at the wide receiver position through 25 grades coming in. And then I moved him down to like 9. And I had questions. Everything that I had a question about, he answered today.
So he's the one guy right now, other than some of these running backs we'll talk about, a couple of these running backs, that I think is in play to be a first-round pick in Dynasty.
Jaden Reed?
Yes.
Well, so I mean, there's also the 2 other questions is Josh Downs, who's not playing in a game, and then Zay Flowers, who's at the Shrine Bowl right now, who came in light, and Byron said he had small hands like that. Those are the 2 guys right now. They're like the 11th and 12th pick in fantasy drafts, and that's where Jaden Reed can enter himself into that conversation against Josh Downs and Zay Flowers, who are mirror images of each other. 180 pounds. Where's Jaden Reed? 180 pounds.
Jaden Reed's in the conversation. He's in the first round conversation.
I'll be super interested to see, because this show will be simulcast on the RosterWatch podcast too. And so for our listeners there, like, or for anybody, go to RosterWatch. I'm about to post Byron's all Shrine Bowl team. I'll be really interested. I haven't looked at it yet. I'll be really interested to see if the players you just mentioned from the Shrine Bowl, Downs and Jones.
Downs isn't Delson's there, but Flowers is.
Or Jones and what did I say? Jones?
Jones.
Oh, I was thinking Zay Jones.
Yeah.
Flowers. If Flowers is on the All Shrine Bowl team, I'm sure he probably is.
If you're a wide receiver, would you go to the Shrine Bowl to stand out? Would that be a strategy?
There's a whole Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl discussion that could be had and could get us in all kinds of trouble with various friends and entities. There's some stuff.
It's a game theory, right?
I don't know. I really don't know.
You let the others commit to the Senior Bowl, then you go to the Shrine Bowl and completely dominate.
Yeah, I don't know.
Think about the corners that they're going up against compared to these corners.
I think the Shrine Bowl is getting. I think the Shrine Bowl is getting better and better. I think that Eric Galco's done a terrific job with it. He's a friend.
Listen to you.
I'm just
Listen to you. Look at you.
I could never be
running
a good,
for office.
I could never be a good politician. Listen to me, dude.
Jesus.
Dude, I can sit here and talk about.
All
I can
due
talk,
respect
I can talk
to
for
all my
hours about
friends in the
anything else
community.
in the world. But man, you ask me a question like this, where I got to be PC.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is, Zay did have the opportunity to come to the Senior Bowl. He chose to go to the Shrine Bowl. It is what it is, and we'll see. I don't know. I haven't looked at Byron's list. We'll see if he makes the All Shrine Bowl team. But nonetheless, comparable to Jaden Reed is Zay Flowers, Josh Downs, and I think in the conversation for that 201, that 112 in fantasy is going to end up being Jaden Reed if he continues through this process and runs 4.47.
He's got
I'll fuck around.
Fine.
4.47 will
Fine.
4.47 will be like
He's got to be sub
Another
4.5. If he's 4.47, that's fine.
And
If
it's
he's
out-
4.4 flat, that's really nice.
And it's already out of the question that he's going to be anything below 75th percentile in all the agility drills.
Yeah, oh yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
like it's
Oh,
already out of the question that he will be anything below that. So
Yeah, he's going to have a sub 11.0 agility score. That'll be great.
Can we
Wait, no, talk tight end real quick. Which tight end impressed you today?
yeah, that's a Cody thing.
I mean,
What, you
Yeah.
don't even, the tight end's too good for you?
No, I wasn't.
You don't even
watching this
care?
closely. When the tight ends were working, I wasn't. Cody likes to watch them.
You know, it's
I
a
mean,
fantasy position.
To me, but it's a fantasy position that doesn't become viable until you have the sample size in the NFL to know who's good.
Did
I
you
mean,
see Trey McBride last year at all? Or did you miss him?
Trey McBride made you see him. Greg Dulcich made you see him. None of these guys made me see them today. So if that says anything, maybe that says something.
Musgrave consistently made those catches.
Musgrave is
he was-
the one that I would. Musgrave is the one that I would.
So Musgrave's the
Musgrave
answer.
seems fast.
Musgrave.
And let's
Musgrave.
just talk about who Musgrave is because people might not know who Musgrave is. Like,
Musgrave.
6'5", 255 out of Oregon.
Oregon State.
6'5", 255 out of Oregon State. My last mock draft on PlayerProfiler.com 2.0 had him going 25th overall to Jacksonville because he's the grandson of Bill Musgrave, the offensive coordinator in the NFL, and rumored to be running. Some people talk about this 4.4 thing, low 4.5s. I don't really quite see that.
Tight end?
4.6 would be nice from him. 6'5", 255, massive dude, massive fucking dude.
Wait. His athleticism score
Should
in
be.
the database would be like 99th percentile. If that
Correct.
that would be wild.
So he's clear cut the number one guy here right
Yeah.
now. Payne Durham
Oh, wow.
started for the national team. Payne Durham,
Guess who's here at the bottom of the elevator?
trash man.
Trash man.
Go get the trash man.
Go get trash man just in time to talk running backs.
Just in time to talk running backs. But I'll run through tight ends really quickly though. Payne Durham from Purdue played. He was the starting tight end in quotes when they did team for the national team. Payne Durham, he's going to be more of a blocking guy than anything. He's got the body type for it. No knee brace, no elbow pads, no gloves, no nothing. He's a bruiser. Going to take a little bit of time, but I think he's fine. The guy that I really liked was Willis from Oklahoma. He came in. I talked about him last week. The best run blocker, the best pass blocking tight end in this entire class. He came in at 6'3.5", which is good because I was worried he's going to come in at 6'2" and like 225 because he's a H-back type. He likes to block, things like that. Played running back at Oklahoma for a little bit there. Came in at 239. So right at 240, right that Evan Ingram type threshold. Light end. But the thing is, unlike Evan Ingram and guys like that size, he's a dog of a blocker. And when he was used, which he was very, very rarely used in the receiving game, he looked very good. And that was one thing where I interviewed him after the practice.
So then
And he's like, I really want to push forward to this. And he looked good today throughout.
okay,
And-
so
and-
so he jumps
he's
high
rising.
and
He's rising.
and he runs fast and he's Dawson Knox.
Yeah, he's right. But that's the thing.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
he didn't have a lot. Exactly.
Yeah.
No touchdowns in college. That's really what it was.
I don't care. I don't care about anything with it. He's gotta run fast and jump high, or it doesn't matter.
He will.
Okay. Well,
Well, like I said,
it's going to come out of
but
the
I mentioned
combine.
this when you're talking about tight ends. Everyone, the tight ends always take a couple years. Evan Ingram had a great rookie year, and it took him a couple years. The thing about Braden Willis from Oklahoma is he's 1,000% the best blocking tight end in this class. And that matters in the NFL for more than running backs in the pass pro, more than fullbacks in blocking. It's tight ends being able to block consistently, even being 240 pounds. You can put a linebacker on his back in a hole. You're going to line up at H-back. You're going to line up consistently.
It's keeping Noah Gray in the league. Guys like Noah Gray, 240, good blocker, and with injuries to the wide receivers in Kansas City, that's why he's on the field. So the running back position, there's two running backs that are head and shoulders the best. We're not going to talk about them yet. I just want to run through some of the running backs that were less impressive. I heard good things about Evan Hall from Northwestern, my alma mater. I didn't see much burst from Evan Hall. I did see some smoothness in the passing game. I think he's interesting, but I wasn't overly impressed. How about you?
Evan Hull's one that I came in with, graded 25 running backs coming in. He was graded as my 23rd running back. And again, that's preliminary stuff, just film-based, nothing else. And I just wasn't impressed with his speed, agility, and lack thereof in the college football at Northwestern. That 55 receptions by itself was impressive, but a lot of it was dump-offs. And I wanted to see what he was going to do to take that, to elevate that here today. And he lined up against the guy we'll talk about here, Chase Brown.
Oh, Chase Brown.
They're the thing with these two guys is before practice started, as Dorian walks in here, the thing was when Chase Brown and Evan Hull lined up next to each other, they walked around everywhere. They entered together. They came around together. They back to back. And Hull looked better than Chase Brown. And I did not see that coming after Chase Brown goes for 1,600 yards this year at Illinois. Hull,
I Chase Brown
special, but
I felt bad for him. Like it was a sad situation. I mean, this guy was fumbling. He was dropping passes. At one point, he fumbled and got his helmet knocked off, I believe, by
his twin brother.
His brother?
I told Matt Kelly the only thing that could have gone worse on that play is if his goddamn shoes would have flown off. It's a comedy of errors with this guy. It was like before they even started going, they were going against air, and he already had 2 fumbles.
He
had the worst performance of anyone. I felt bad for him. In fact, I could have interviewed him, and I decided not to because all I would have is focused on the negative, and I didn't want to subject him to that. Even though it would have been funny, I should have done it. But other running backs in this in the national group, Cameron Peoples. I think he was the second best running back in that group. That's not saying a lot.
Not hard to do.
Yeah, it was a very low bar.
He
looked like he would run hard. I don't know whether he's altogether smooth in the passing game or not. I don't see a high ceiling for this guy. I'm interested in see what his athleticism looks like, but I'm not overly impressed. But he didn't hurt himself.
Are you optimistic about the athleticism testing?
No.
Are you optimistic about the agility scores?
No.
When he came in at 215, my initial comp for Latavius Murray, that's like a 225, 230-pound back, big bruiser with the one cut and has speed. Like Latavius, I think, ran like a 4.48 or 4.49 when he came out.
Yeah.
This was
still in the league, by the way.
Still in the league.
Still fantasy relevant.
Because he's got the frame. But the thing is Cameron Peoples came in at 215, and he looked like the build was similar to Devonta Price last year, who came in, but he was 195. But it just was a slender body type, and I didn't hate it. It just
you think he was a more slender
lower body?
Well, yeah. I thought he was a little blocky up top. He presents a lot of surface areas with tight. So I mean, the comp that just came to me was maybe he could be like a Peyton Barber. What do you think of that one?
Yeah, I think that's best case scenario.
Ooh, maybe he could be like that.
Yeah, no, he's not. Listen, it's not. I'm not that impressed. I wasn't that impressed with a Chris Rodriguez.
Well, that guy would have. I mean,
well, he was falling down. Like he had to work extra hard to make anything happen. And
I told you guys, if you need 2
lost
yards,
his balance.
If you need 2 yards, Chris Rodriguez is getting you 2 yards. If you need 5 yards, Chris Rodriguez is getting you 2 yards.
So I mentioned the Brian Robinson corollary because we saw him last year. can like run into the back of his own offensive lineman at practice all year last year. What do you think about Darrell Williams? Get you 2 yards. Get you 2 yards for Chris Rodriguez.
Oh,
I don't think he's
you know
that
what?
good.
Maybe no, because Chris Rodriguez is much stockier and looks more like he doesn't.
It's not going to happen.
It's
not gonna happen.
He's more stocky. Man, he's a hard worker.
He really is a hard worker, which is not necessarily.
He gives every ounce of his body and his energy into inside run drills where everybody else is going 80%.
He wants to be good, but at running back, you need a little bit more than just the want to be good.
So, I mean, look, God bless him. Hopefully he's a great player. I think he's a guy that makes it look a little bit hard.
Yeah. I think we've talked enough about him. Kenny McIntosh
got injured during practice. He looked. You guys thought he looked a little better than I thought. I came in with a low grade on him.
I wasn't that impressed. Again, I don't know if I have. I feel like I may be holding this class to a super high standard. Remember in 2020, not only did we have the incredible quarterbacks, we had Herbert and Hurts, right? And at running back, we also had Antonio Gibson. I mean, it was just, and so that's the only other Senior Bowl I've been to, and maybe I'm unfairly holding these players to this standard, which is unfair, but I just kept walking away underwhelmed by a lot of these guys.
With McIntosh, for me, my exposure to him was just, I hadn't done my work on him yet. I'd seen, I'd seen in the college football playoffs. But I talked to Cody just a shit ton about these guys, right? We constantly text back and forth, and Cody, I mean, you seem real down on him. And I came in here thinking this guy's going to be, is this guy's going to have these, he's going to be like the guy, the guy Chase Brown with his shoes falling off and whatever else. He's not like that. He's kind of fast. He's pretty.
Well, he's now injured, which is sad.
I thought that there were some redeeming characteristics that he.
Are they going to call someone up?
And do you know what? Yes, they are. Let me just say this too. Maybe we should preface the running back position by saying there are only certain things that you can evaluate, especially on day one in the Senior Bowl setting like this or All-Star setting like this, that you can really evaluate with the running backs. It's so much easier with the wide receivers, and it's so much easier with the linemen and with the tight ends and stuff. With the running backs, it's you can see how they are in pass protection. You can see how they are catching the football out of the backfield. You can, people say that you can't see their vision or their creativity with their vision. They say you can't see their contact balance. They say,
Tajay Spears had Tajay Spears. I saw some vision from Tajay Spears.
Those are things that I do believe that an inside run drills is the most important one where you can see those things. And
we saw that from Antonio Gibson.
We saw from Damian Pierce was one of the best inside run drill guys I've ever seen at the Senior Bowl. He would maybe Doug Martin might have been Doug Martin was just incredible at those inside run drills, and he was good for a long time at the NFL level. But
Doug Martin has some monster seasons.
But with McIntosh, I hate to be wishy-washy. I always like to have a real solid take, but he got hurt halfway through practice, and we didn't get to see it in. It's so I get the easiest cop out.
I'm just very hopeful that he can be healthy for the combine. That's the next question: is will he be healthy for the combine? To me, there was a play where the ball got tipped, and then he was lunging, and his leg got rolled up on.
Yep.
And it looked like a shoe caught in the turf, twisting. And I had a couple players after the practice talk about the turf. All these stadiums got to move to natural grass. Enough with the turf.
Hey, well, this is a whole different fucking thing. But you're totally right. You guys, we've never had this conversation. I'm 100% with you on this.
This is it's becoming it's hurting guys' careers.
Yeah, no,
it's a travesty. I don't like it.
Well,
no one likes it.
And that's nothing to say about Hancock Whitney Stadium, University of South Alabama, the Senior Bowl in general. They do not put these players in danger whatsoever. They take every precaution with them.
Yes, Mayor Alex. Yes,
but But as a just general principle, man, I feel the exact same way that you do as far as the game of football. They should be getting away from this. Even these turfs that and they have sales guys for these different turf companies.
No.
They say it's actually safer.
It's fake. That's fake.
Than grass.
Wrong.
I'm not sure that's a whole other podcast.
It's a lie.
We could have that podcast.
It's big turf. I'm anti big turf.
We should have a big turf podcast.
Yeah,
we'll
call it the big turf.
Yeah. Where we just expose their lies.
Yeah, it's just lies on top of lies on top of lies. Yeah. Tajay Spears, the one issue that I think that I've heard from multiple analysts is the medicals.
And I'll tell you, man, again with Tajay Spears, I thought he was great.
He looked good.
Number 22,
smooth,
Tulane. You guys saw him in the bowl game. Burst. To me, it's a Michael Carter type of player. He is good in the passing game. He's good at getting small and just navigating through stuff and just finding his way upfield. The next thing you know, when he breaks into open field, he's pretty fast. He's a good player. I will say I did notice whenever I didn't ask him any questions with his interviews, but I like to walk around and these guys are having their interviews with the national media. I like to look around, get an eye on them, kind of check out their bodies, check out their bodies. Yeah.
Check out their. Did you see any scars on his knee?
Well, I'm just with Tajay, you definitely notice. He's definitely had some kind of he's definitely had some kind of surgery, I believe, on the outside of the right knee that you can definitely tell is there.
Meniscus, ACL.
There've been talks about some sort of medical concerns. I haven't looked into his complete injury history.
I like him, man. But I think he's one of these dented cans that you get at a discount. I want him.
Yeah. I think that's a great way to.
Yeah, I want him.
I don't want to call him a dented can because that can give you botulism. So I don't want to deal with that. Have you seen the devastating effects of botulism?
Okay.
Matt, do you not can any of your own food in case of a natural disaster or an apocalypse? I guess not.
Rural Texas, man. Prepper community. I get it, man. I get it. I get the mentality. I'm just not there. Yeah. I'm in Connecticut. If Amazon delivery and Whole Foods delivery fails, we starve.
You guys are going Lord of the Flies.
We're dead. It's over. It's a wrap. Yeah. All right. So let's get to the most interesting players for fantasy, for dynasty. There's two players that are head and shoulders more interesting than anybody else. I mean, I shouldn't say that because
our RB3 overall.
Jaden Reed is he really excelled, and he's in the conversation for first round pick in dynasty rookie drafts. However, running back Eric Gray and Roshan, right? I almost got a guy. I keep wanting to say Roshan Johnson, Eric Gray, Roshan Johnson. Who you got?
Fuck me. I mean, so I came in. I'm gonna let you dig into Roshan some more because Alex is down here in Texas working on Roshan and Bijan consistently. But through the grades, I had Eric Gray number 3 overall in the class, and that was before I had any outside look or anything. And I moved him down to I think RB5 coming in. Then we're here having the conversation, and I go, "You're just looking at Roshan. I mean, you can see what you can see on film, and you can see perceived athleticism. But when you see a guy like Roshan Johnson, 6 foot and some change, and a couple pennies, and 225 pounds, built so freaking well." I'm sitting here looking at him, and on tape, it's like, oh, it's one thing. I'm like, this is, they're using him like Jalen Samuels. He's a great blocker. He's whatever. He's a great teammate. Talk to Alex. He's always talking positive. But when you put your eyes on this guy, it's not Jalen Samuels. I was sitting here for 25, 30 minutes, and I finally look at it and I go, Alex, Sean Alexander. And I was like, he's top 5. He's not 5. It's what you said was the Cadillac Ronnie Brown thing. That's what the situation is. Felix Jones, Darren McFadden. It's these double backfield where you have to take advantage.
Yes.
Roshan Johnson, we talked about it multiple times. We talked about multiple shows you and me have about Roshan Johnson since last year's Senior Bowl.
This would be like
This
would be like if Saquon Barkley and Miles Sanders were coming out in the same draft class.
Yep.
Roshan Johnson would be Miles Sanders
Yep.
in a good way. In a good way, right? Miles Sanders was the top back in fantasy. It was between him and Josh Jacobs. You know, Sanders had a better receiving profile coming out and a little more athletic, so we preferred Sanders. But after the season that Josh Jacobs had, I think Josh Jacobs has surpassed him in Dynasty quite easily at this point. Either way, that's the level of talent that we're talking about. This is a great gift. This is a great gift from the sleeper gods that we get a guy that happened to be behind one of the great talents in college football history at the running back position. And it's possible that the guy that was behind him on the depth chart was the second best running back in the entire class.
Yeah, to me, it's a little bit surreal to be talking about Roshan like this. But you just, in Central Texas and in Austin and around the Texas football program, everybody knows Roshan as the guy who came in as a star Texas high school quarterback. Right? He's got the mind of a quarterback. He has that sort of leadership ability in the locker room, and even through different coaching staffs, you have him, who Steve Sarkisian calls his lieutenant. He's consistently on the honor roll for the University of Texas. He has, I think he has like a tough major that he has. He's always on the Big 12.
What was his major?
I think it's in like marketing at the Macomb School.
Marketing. That's not hard.
Well, it isn't hard for you, clearly. look at what you built. But look, I could be wrong.
Marketing.
It could be that.
I thought you were going to say like material science.
No, well, maybe it is. I just know that Roshan is a guy, excellent student, always on the Big 12 honor rolls, always on all this stuff. And look,
where he went. He has a dual degree. Right. He was at the Macomb School. Right. I know that. The Macomb School.
I think
the Macomb School is a business school at the University of Texas.
If he wasn't there, it was at the Great Communication School. It was one of them.
He also went to Ball So Hard College.
Okay, yeah.
Which is the most important college.
Yeah.
He went to Ball So Hard.
So, and the reason why Keontae Ingram left Texas, he would never admit this, but it wasn't because of Bijan Robinson. It was because of Roshan Johnson. Because if anything ever would have happened to Bijan, Roshan would have completely taken over. There's no way a guy like Keontae could have competed with Roshan. He's got the mind of a quarterback. He's got that intellect. His pass pro is great. We saw today one of the best looking, most put together. Like for me, like I've just seen him on the Texas football field, and it's versus those guys. And I know it's Roshan. You see him on the field versus these other guys, and you say, "Whoa." You're like, wait, you just reset. You say, he's 225 pounds as a running back.
This is
and
insane.
He looks like this. And
he's only here because of Bijan.
Right.
If he had gone to Texas A&M, he would have come out last year.
Right. So with
great fucking point.
With Roshan Johnson, it was just talking about today at practice. It was the inside run drills where he navigated through there the same way that we've seen, getting free at the second level and bursting through. It was the pass catching ability. It was the pass pro. And it was all, man, he showed his speed. And his agent is Eric Burkhart, who isn't Burkhart the agent for, he's the agent for like, is he the agent for Kyler? Jeez, we haven't fact checked. I think he's like the Kyler's agent, Cliff, and like all. He's a big time agent, right? And I was asking him.
He's got a big time agent.
I was asking him after practice. I said, what's Roshan going to run? And he just said fast.
Oh.
And I believe him because if you look at the little listings they do at Texas with the internal testing that they do during the winter and the spring conditioning, where they test their 40s and they do the pro drills with them, Roshan's always at the very top. And, so he's going to test in a way that's going to make the I predict he's going to test in a way that's going to open the eyes of the analytics people, even after we've seen this with our own eyes, as far as the on-field stuff here at the Senior Bowl and throughout his time at Texas.
So it really could be a Ronnie Brown, Cadillac Williams situation.
I would be that isn't anything that I've ever predicted or anything that I had ever foreseen. But since you've mentioned it, I mean, could things fall that way?
Because I remember when I was a kid, Cadillac Williams got the splash plays, right? Cadillac Williams was the sexy guy, but then Ronnie Brown had the better career in the NFL.
Yeah, and I told you, man. I talked to one scout. He just said, I asked about Bijan. Where's he going to go? And I talked about Bijan. I want to know about Bijan. All the Texas fans want to know about Bijan and stuff. And all he wants to talk to me about is Roshan Johnson. And he's like, you don't have any idea how close Roshan's going to go to Bijan whenever it comes time to get drafted. The team captain of the whole team. You got to think, this is a Texas team that's had guys like Casey Thompson over the course of the last few years. They've had Quinn Ewers, a brand new quarterback in Texas. They've had Hudson Card. These guys have not been guys stand up, ready to go leaders. You got Roshan, who's like, even though Bijan's the face of the team, Roshan's been the heart of the team. And whenever scouts come around and ask coaches about this shit, like that shit matters to them. And so there's sort of a high level of respect that scouts have for what he's going to bring to the on-field product. Is it's an employee for these football teams. I mean, they kind of look into that stuff.
I think that this is also similar to the Kenneth Walker situation last year, where we knew Breece Hall, right? We knew Breece Hall going in to the 2021 college football season was going to be the 101, right? It was already predetermined, right? And he delivered, right? He delivered, had a great season, came out early as a junior, bam. Not many people were talking about Kenneth Walker. Is it transfer, right? Transfers to Michigan State from Wake Forest. And then all of a sudden, okay, he's a monster producer, right? And now he's at the combine and he's running a 4.4. And it's like, wait, what? Yeah. And then we get that second running back,
right,
for the draft, where you're in the top 5 and you're deciding between a handful of receivers and 2 of these running backs. And I was looking at this class with Cody the last couple of weeks, and what stood out to me, he's talking about Kendre Miller and all these guys, and I'm like, I'm not super excited to draft a running back if Bijan Robinson's off the board. Now I'm a lot more excited.
It's incredible to hear. And there's another, like you talked about, you don't like the Big 12 receivers, but I think the story of the day today was Big 12 running backs, right?
Yeah, Eric Gray also great. Eric Gray's got the size. He's 210. So the weigh-in was critical for Eric Gray. He gets up to 210. He was, catching everything. He was awesome in pass pro. That guy checked all the boxes. He did everything you can. Again, there's only so much these running backs can do in drills because they're not full contact. And running backs really show who they are and what they're capable of in full contact situations. That's why it's a difficult evaluation, more difficult. Eric Gray, he would have had to be Roshan Johnson to but he wasn't quite Roshan. He was almost as good, but not quite. He just wasn't quite Roshan Johnson. But it was still great to watch him out there. It was so clear. What I loved is if you're not paying attention and you're distracted, right? You're talking to, Faraz was coming out. It was a lot, Ray and Derek Brown from Fantasy Pros. We're talking a lot of guys. Scott Barrett was there.
Hopefully Scott will come by.
Tons of our friends were there. And you get distracted and you look up, but you always know. You knew when it was Gray and you knew when it was Johnson. You always knew.
Yep. The difference in the original question behind this was Gray or Johnson. I think we're all on the same page. It's Johnson.
Oh yeah, it's Johnson.
But that doesn't take anything away from Gray.
The thing is, that's the thing.
I think if
he did everything he
Gray
could do.
The thing is Roshan's 225 pounds and he's completely built. Gray, my only question on here that I wrote in my notes was Gray lacks the workhorse frame that you'd want out of a bell cow back, and that's what Roshan has. Gray's 210. Gray can do it, but my confidence was Devonta Freeman. What did Devonta Freeman? He could never take the full workload. He always had Tevin next to him, and that's the thing that kind of pulls Gray down for me. And Gray, I shook his hand, soft as a pillow, and you saw it in the receiving game today. Fantastic pass catcher, as we knew coming in. But the question and the answer is Roshan Johnson. I think he's a top 5 back hands down in this class. It's not a question.
Can I just also say about Eric Gray? He's got the most insane musculature that I've ever seen in person out of a running back here with his just like, because when I was talking to Cody after the first, he came out a little bit early whenever media was still out there after the first practice. He came out a little bit early. He was doing some stuff in the end zone. And I just looked at him and he's got one of these, like he had his jersey kind of, the jersey's kind of tucked up underneath.
I talked to him. Yeah, I talked to him. He's a great guy.
And you just see he's got this kind of, Devin Duvernay had this, they're the kinds of players who look like their ab area looks like it's like a tube almost underneath. And you look at it, you're like, what's going on with this? And you look at it, it's just like ab, like armor. He's just get ripped and cut with these abs that are just so crazy. And then you just get up in the stands, you see him from the field, and you see his quads, you see his rump, you see his calves, and you just say, what is going on with this power base? This is really something. This is something dynamite that we have here. That at 210 pounds, we always say 207 pounds. That's north of the Trey Mason-Dixon line. That's what we want to have out of an every down back, right? 210, man. He comes in, right? He comes in there. And
I want Gray, man. The big question is Roshan Johnson. Is he top 3? I'm leaning yes. And then Eric Gray, is he top 5?
Gray goes
maybe.
Grace, I think Gray's right at that 5-6 line. Roshan, I think Roshan's 3 right now. I'd put him ahead of Kendre Miller. And you put him behind Jahmyr Gibbs because Jahmyr Gibbs is so prolific in the receiving game, and as a pass blocker, he's just gonna be a PPR monster. But right now, Roshan and Kendre for me would be kind of that. They're Kendre. So people forget Kendre. I mean, touched on every single game this year, 1,300 yards. Zach Evans left for a reason too. Like Kendre Miller needs to respect too, but Roshan's that conversation.
Those 4 guys.
Roshan's in that conversation.
Those 4 guys. It's those 4 guys, and then you're down to Eric Gray.
I've seen Kendre a little bit. I've seen Kendre a ton. I've seen Zach. I mean, Zach Evans. Zach Evans could be a whole different podcast. I think that, dude, if we're talking Kendre Miller and Roshan Johnson, that's a very good conversation.
It's an interesting conversation.
Yeah, so I think that makes plenty of sense, and we'll see how things go through the course of the week. But certainly, it feels like I go down to the field and it's dude, I forget his name. I think Pelissero and stuff. The first guy he goes and grabs is Roshan Johnson after the practice is over.
Oh, the NFL Network.
Yeah, it's just like so it was. I think it was kind of clear to a lot of folks.
I think this was a very exciting day for Roshan Johnson. I wanted to be Roshan Johnson so badly today because he's spent 4 years in the shadow of this guy.
Yeah, it's true, right?
Okay. And he's been this guy that people talk about behind the scenes, like you talk about, right?
Yeah.
Oh, he's a great guy.
Scouts
He's really smart.
Right.
He's a hard worker. Let's stop talking about Bijan for a second and talk about this other guy that also deserves a little bit of attention. And it's actually much closer between Bijan and Roshan Johnson than anyone realizes and all these things. But he's been basically toiling away in obscurity for 4 years, knowing in his heart that he's this good, but yet not being able to showcase it to the world until today. And then he has that moment and he delivers. And then the NFL Network is waiting for him and he realizes like the practice is over and it's all clicking in his mind. He's like, wait, this is happening. I'm going to be rich. Like I'm going to the NFL. Like it's all like I knew I had it in me, but I still needed to do this thing today to take that step and then to just see someone do it successfully, because you can have an incredible resume and you can face plant, any given game, right? Any given practice, and it's not going to be a big deal. But when you have this one day that you could elevate,
the lights came on
and you could change your life. Mm-hmm. It was like a life-changing day for this guy. I actually was like really jealous of what he was feeling, because I was like, I want to be him right now.
Big day, man. These are all big days in Mobile, man. These are big times, dude. So it's big action.
It's all we have right now.
A lot of shit going on.
It's also all we have for football. Yeah, it's all we have. And we're loving what we have. We're loving Roshan Johnson.
You gotta love what you got, man. Dance with who brung you.